So Mellon Auditorium has always been a special building for us, GSA. In about 80 years, this is the first time we've done restoration to this extent.
Well, the Mellon was conceived as part of the Macmillan Plan in the early 1900s. That plan was an effort to kind of redevelop Washington as a world capital. So the Federal Triangle, which is where the Mellon is located, is actually physically a triangular-shaped area located just above the National Mall. Arthur Brown was the architect who was selected for the Mellon Auditorium. The Mellon Auditorium, I would say, for approximately 20 years, has been outleased by the federal government. We have the ability to do that through the National Historic Preservation Act, but over the 20-year period of heavy use of the leasing program, GSA felt it was time to reinvest in the space again. Under that law that allows us to outlease the space, it allows us to take that money and reinvest it in the historic properties that have generated it.
It is a spectacular historic space that has been used for many events, some seemingly mundane as a wedding, right up to inaugural balls. The space has been used for a long time, and over the years, as any space does, it started to get a little run down. When you first look around at the space, it doesn't seem like there are that many materials, but as you start to get into it more, you realize that we really do have quite a number, and they were pretty much all touched by this project. But the finishes have been renewed, they've been matched up to the historic finishes, and the space itself has been altered. Renewing these finishes has really, really changed the space.
And the part that was really the most challenging from the beginning and then on through was the Sphinx stone.
John Canny's role in this project was responsible for the decorative finishes and the Sphinx stone restoration and cleaning thereof, as well as the wonderful gilding that we see around us and above us. Sphinx stone is a composite material made of primarily oyster shell and some binder and cast in forms to look like stone. So looking at this room from a distance, you think it's limestone block, and it's really fantastic, but it has wonderful acoustic properties. The repairs of the Sphinx stone are basically twofold. It's actually patching, repairing cracks in the stone itself, and then filling in and repairing the mortar joints surrounding the stone. We truly used the oyster shells, and that was fun. So we had to figure out ways to grind it down, which was really interesting. We tried pulverizing it and banging it down, but ultimately we used an old-fashioned coffee grinder. Really kind of low-tech ideas that were really useful.
So they were able to really, with just the right amount of force, get that oyster shell in, adhere it correctly, and then as needed, they did some in painting to really make the color match.
Yeah, the regilding in this space is monumental. There's not many rooms in the United States like this that have this much gilding. The moldings are incredible. All that gilding really does something pretty spectacular here.
We have touched everything. Certainly the flooring is a big difference from what we had initially, and that's the first thing when you step into the building.
This is one of the largest ornamental floors in Washington, D.C. that I know of. The existing floor, which was not original, had to be removed and replaced. When we lay an ornamental floor like this, we start with a center layout. So when we start a floor like this, it looks kind of simplistic, but it is a very complex floor. Everything's cut on a 45 in just about this entire job, except for to the left and right of the stage. There's some curved pieces. We use a method I've been trained with from my grandfather to my father to me to my kids, is we do the same method you do with handrails. We take a larger piece of wood, we cut it into strips, we number each and every one of them, we glue it together, and we put it in a form. And it looks like Mother Nature bent that wood perfectly because the grain follows the curve.
The doors are a solid red oak, and they do have and while they primarily are stained, they do have a gold leaf highlighting on the doors, on the trim elements. Unlike almost any other element that was restored, the doors were actually taken off-site.
They went to the Craftsman Group's shop. The rest of the gilding in the space is Dutch gilding, and the doors are actually gold leaf.
The paint in the coffers stands out. When we got up there, once the scaffolding was put in, we were lucky to be able to find some areas that had been hidden by the coffers, and they had the original color of paint there. We have two colors up there. We have a bluish, and we have sort of a brick reddish color, and they're quite rich.
And once we did find them, perfect, they're right there, we cleaned them, and then we made brush outs to match those colors. And once we established those colors, I mean, okay, these are the original colors. Of course, we put them back in place and they look fantastic.
So the Tennessee pink, which are the column pedestals and the border around the column pedestals, was actually in pretty reasonable shape, except for the corners. The honing took care of a lot of surface scratches and other minor deficiencies. And then there were areas where there was enough disturbance of the fabric that we had to do Dutchman to take care of it.
We were able to honor what was here and repair that without replacing, which is important in a historic project. The Dutchmen that were performed, we were lucky that we were able to remove marble from the back. It was able to be cut out and used for the few Dutchmen that were performed.
The ceiling, which is massive, it's tremendous, and it's just this big field of blue. I think the ceiling's the unsung hero of this project, oddly enough, because it kind of just quietly sits up there and has this wonderful sky effect. And with these incredible pendants that are hanging off of it, down below it, when the light shoots back up from the pendants on the ceiling, it creates this wonderful kind of shimmering effect off of this kind of otherwise really matte color.
I think the ceiling was a particular challenge because when we came in, it was beige, and I think when you look up, the color really transformed the space. When you look around the space, there's so much going on architecturally, and then with the gilding, these beautiful doors, the decorative elements that are applied, the festoons, the swags, the medallions, the coffers, the wonderful frieze. There's so much going on. I think Arthur Brown Jr., who was the architect, wisely decided that the ceiling didn't need to do much of anything because there was already a lot happening.
When you walk into this building, I don't care who you are, you look from the floor to the ceiling, you're at all.
The transformation of this space from when you walked in the door, and anybody who walked in would say it was a beautiful, magnificent space. But those of us who know the materials knew that it could be more. And to see the building now and the team that was brought together and communicated with each other and figured out how to make this work and what materials were involved and how to respect and repair this building transformed it to a point where people would walk in before and ooh and ah, and now people walk in and their jaw drops.